Right. So thank you, everybody, for coming to the Route One traffic or the pedestrian safety improvements project, our sidewalk project from the sort of downtown area through Grove and North High Street on both sides of the road. We're looking at connecting our pedestrian facilities, some of which exist in various states of repair. And so trying to create a cohesive entry to and from our downtown and connecting our properties along the way. So hopefully, as we get forward through the discussion of tonight, folks can look at this as an amenity to the town. It's you know, sort of some of the goals that we have in our long range planning and that kind of stuff. For folks who don't know me, my name is Abby Pearsall. I'm your town planner. So thank you again for being here. We have in our audience, we have, let's see, Todd Hayjack from Public Works. We have Brian and Carrie from Town Council, various property owners. We have Mark Jewell from VHB. So we have a good crowd, and I'll let everybody here introduce themselves in just a minute. The format for tonight is our consulting team is going to take us through a presentation. We've got a representative here from DOT. So we'll go through the various aspects of the project, and then we're going to leave room for questions and answers. There is a sign-in sheet in the back of the room, so please feel free to sign in so we can be in touch with you. My card is back there, so if anybody has questions, comments, as we go through, we'll talk about our timeframes for public comment, and we'll make sure everybody has a way to get that information to me, and I can get it to our team. And aside from that, I think we'll turn it over and get started, so we use good use of our time. So I'll turn it over to Ken, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So thanks everyone for coming. We're gonna jump right into the project. So we're just gonna have some pictures, a little slideshow, and then as you said, we'll save some questions for the end. But I gotta make this work here first. There we go. All right, so we're just gonna have a little project team of who's kind of been working on this project. I know Abby already introduced a few folks. So at the top, we just wanted to recognize the town council, the town manager, for working with us on this project. Abby and Todd, as we've already said, certainly helping being instrumental with the project. And myself, I'm Ken Radswan. I'm a senior project manager here at BL Companies. I've brought over 18 years of experience now. My team and I like to work on a municipal type projects just like this. We like making big impacts, even with smaller projects and communities, because it's fun. You can do a lot of big projects like big I-95 projects, I-84 projects. This is the fun stuff because it's things I could show my kids, even if they roll their eyes. It's still fun to show them. Things that we can go on and walk, we can go on trails. That's the kind of things that we get excited for. So that's predominantly what I do is municipal type projects. State might get involved. Those are the things that we get excited for. And I have like really at the town, I spent most of my summers, so the first 20 years of my life in Clinton, living here about 4 months out of the year. So I'm very familiar, going all the way back to the late 80s, all through the 90s. So seeing how things have changed, it's been a lot of fun. And to be able to work here is pretty cool too. Mike?
Yeah, I'm Mike Shepley, Principal Traffic Engineer with BL. I have over 15 years experience. I worked on a lot of big projects. We completed the Pell study for the Mixed Master in Waterbury, if you heard about that. I've also worked on a lot of small things like this project here with High Street Grove on Route 1. I think when I first started at BL, I worked on about 30 intersections that had accessible pedestrian signals, which is what we're doing here. So a lot of experience and yeah.
So anyways, we're just trying to highlight some of the experience that we have and how we kind of format ourselves into this project. So we're just gonna start with the project location map. North is up. So just keep that in mind as we kind of go through the corridor here, kind of outline in red, try to use some the locations of some of the existing streets out here. So on the west-hand side, we're starting at North High Street, and we're taking all the way over to John Street and Pearl Street, kind of where Chips is, the new CVS, etc. So through this corridor, we're gonna kind of get a little bit more of the weeds in the next slideshow. Sidewalks on both the north and southern side of the road, all the way through here. So we're trying to make the connection of the existing sidewalk that you already have and what I would consider relatively new area just on the west side of North High Street over to CVS and get you downtown. So we're trying to kind of get that connectivity, maybe enhance it a little bit further as you get towards job lot, etc. So with that, we kind of just want to define some of the criteria of the project, some existing conditions, maybe a purpose need, like why we're here. And obviously many of you know, we've already alluded to it, it's putting some sidewalks on the street. So there's a lot of areas of non-compliant sidewalks. So in our world, we have a lot of guidelines that we follow. And it's important to understand it's guidance. There's some things that there's standards and there's guidance. So here we're using a lot of guidance. So we're going to throw a lot of acronyms around. And if you don't understand, please ask. We will, yeah, we'll So we're gonna be doing ADA guidance, which is American Disabilities Act. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. That's kind of our first and foremost. So we want to get these sidewalks to that most recent guidance and what we call PROAG standards, PROWAG, which is Public Rights of Way Accessibility Guidelines. So just basically taking ADA guidance, which is generally for buildings, structures, things like this, but actually thinking about how do we put that into a roadway? Because it's not really a one-for-one like. So you might have a guidance that says you need a 36-inch width doorway. They don't have doors on the streets, right? So they kind of created some set of guidance that puts you on the road. So that's what we're hearing to out here. So there's some areas that have current existing sidewalks that are not compliant, meaning that maybe they're not wide enough. Maybe there's something where there's some tripping hazards. We want to rectify that. So we're identifying those areas. You can see some of the pictures here. That's where Mike comes in with the traffic signal. It's about 8-ish years old now at North High Street and Grove Street, but we want to upgrade it. And it's also going to account for the pedestrians that we're going to put and the push buttons that Mike's going to get into so folks can safely travel across. So there'll be some new crosswalks that we'll put in along with the project. So we'll get into that in a few minutes. And there's a lot of driveways. Just even in this short corridor, you have a lot of driveways, large driveways. Almost feels like the whole property is a driveway. We want to look at what we call access management, try to condense it down so it's a little bit safer. So if you're on a sidewalk, riding your bike or walking, we want to make sure that you are not just crossing in front of an infinite driveway as it feels like, so that there's less conflict points between vehicles and pedestrians, because we're trying to make this a kind of a multimodal accessibility gateway for folks, right? So you don't want to send your kid out there on the sidewalk, then you have to go, oh my goodness, there's like 18 driveways, he's got to be very careful. I know my wife would be crazy with that. So that's what we're trying to get at with this. So kind of the total purpose and need, which kind of ties into what I said. So some overall larger zoomed out ideas, we want to improve our pedestrian safety. First and foremost, we want to make sure that when we put this in, we're thinking about safety. What do those conflict points look like? We want to make sure that vehicles get accessing in and out of their driveways, businesses, which there are many out here. People are going to be safe. So we're always thinking about that. What can we do? If we had curbs in here, if we raise a sidewalk, we push it back, we make room for snow. How do we interact with some of these features, right? So as we talk about, many of these are kind of tied together with installing compliant sidewalks, which I've already spoken about. There's some non-compliant sidewalks. So you're going to see some of the project will work out some what look like perfectly good sidewalks, which we'll talk about. There's a reason for that. It's not just to spend money. There's an actual reason that we're trying to meet the guidance that's set forth by the federal government for us. There's some drainage conditions that we want to talk about. I'm sure if anybody's driven through here in any kind of rain event, you notice that there's some ponding. So we're going to kind of talk about what we can do to potentially improve that. And then, as I already alluded to, access management, which is just kind of consolidating the driveways. Everybody good so far? All right. So we kind of have a colored rendering of our plans. Again, we have a plan set in the back over here showing the same thing, just with not as much color. Color really helps. And then we can also pull up what these look like, and we can zoom in and zoom out later on. But just for now, we kind of want to walk through the corridor. So I'll come on this side over here. So as I said before, we're gonna have 2 plan sheets. We're starting, north is up again, designated by the north arrow. It's starting on the west-hand side of the project. So we got, say, job lot, like way over here in Subway. So sort of close. That's kind of where we're starting at the liquor store right up here. We're gonna install some concrete sidewalks. We'll start on the northern side. All the way to the liquor store, and we're gonna try to reconfigure the existing island, which is on state property right now, so that again, we can get people safely to this point. And then Mike's gonna kind of talk about what that looks like as far as traffic is concerned, and what the appurtenances need to be required so that folks can push your button, turn the signal red so that you can safely cross. So there'll be some new crossings as part of it. And then the sidewalk will continue all the way through on the northern side. There's a few different challenges along the way in this particular side because the grade varies. And if you walk there now, you'll see some like 6x6 timber that's stacked up, probably about 18 inches tall, acting as a retaining wall. So we're gonna look to replace it. It's like right over here. I know, Todd, you're probably zoomed out a little bit. So we're gonna replace that with concrete. So that wall's gonna go away, and we're gonna add a new concrete wall. It's gonna be just a little bit more robust rather than timber, which it's starting to lean a little bit. It'll just be better. So that'll be integral to the sidewalk, so that'll look nice. Anywhere that you kind of see green, there's little faint hints of green, is where we have to go from the existing ground, our proposed ground, back to existing. So it might be a little higher or a little lower, so that's gonna be grass, that's kind of what we're trying to show with some of this green area here. And then kind of on the southern side. At this Grove intersection, that's where we're gonna start, like the old Friendlies, we're gonna have new sidewalk again, try to marry what's there now in the existing conditions, which is the old hardware store, it's kind of like, it's plants.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, so I'm dating myself here, but, so we're gonna wrap that around again to Grove Street with a new crosswalk, so you can get over to the gas station. So then taking the sidewalk from the gas station further south, as you kind of head towards the water. So we're trying to lock into all the existing sidewalks that exist now through this network. And adding some more crossings that kind of make sense for the corridor, which again, we'll kind of jump into in a second. And then there's no real change as far as the line striping or lane configurations, but I know Mike will get into that a little bit. So all the sidewalks, they're all gonna be concrete and a minimum of 5 feet wide. That's what the guidance makes sure that we do. So 5 feet so that you can essentially have 2 wheelchairs pass one another safely, because we want to be mindful of all the folks that may use the sidewalk. So in some areas, we're gonna go with a wider sidewalk because we have the space to do so. And a lot of times what we do is put a snow shelf. So you'll see a grass shelf, commonly called a tree belt. Here in New England, we use it as for snow storage, right? Plows are coming through, they need somewhere the snow to go. Ideally not on the sidewalk, because that's maintenance issue, you gotta get it cleared. We put it between, on the grass strip, snow shelf, so it doesn't go on the sidewalk. As you can see, you're gonna say, well, Ken, you don't see a snow shelf. You're absolutely right. Sometimes if we have too narrow of a snow shelf, I don't know about you guys, but I have a hard enough time growing grass in my whole front yard, let alone a 1 foot strip, right? So if you got a little strip like this, it doesn't make a lot of sense to grow grass there. So that's why we would just increase the width of the sidewalk, so that helps everybody. So yes, the snow will be on the sidewalk, but there should be enough buffer on the backside that you'll still safely be able to traverse it during the winter time. Mark, we're doing it? Okay, you go to the next one. So we're gonna kind of continue east a little bit further. So as we're coming up and around, we got the apartments on the southern side here. On the north side, we're kind of passing the train station through here, so there's some existing sidewalks in front of the train station, those are compliant. We actually looked at that, we investigated those were done correctly, so we don't need to touch them. We're actually gonna tie right into those, and we're just gonna be replacing the sidewalks on this piece here, with new sidewalk. On the southern side, there is not a sidewalk, but there's kind of a shelf there now. If you ever walk that strip on the southern side, there's some pavement. Might have been an old sidewalk at some point, so that's all gonna come out so that we can basically put a brand new concrete sidewalk in about 5 feet wide throughout that whole space. You'll also notice that some of these homes here are a little bit higher elevation than the road, so they already have a retaining wall there now. We're essentially gonna replace that retaining wall with the same concrete retaining wall that I alluded to further to the west of where we are. So it's all gonna look very modern, very much the same. The idea here is that you can be walking on sidewalks at both sides of the road, obviously, right? So you can get to where you wanna go and be safe when you're doing it. As we get through this particular area here, we have a couple raised sidewalks as we show in the design plans right now at the gas station here at Valero, and then Pellegrini. Pelletier, excuse me, Pelletier. We're showing 5 foot minimum sidewalks there, and they're gonna be elevated 6 inches. This is within the state right of way. So we have this line right here that shows exactly where the state's right of way is. And that's something that we're gonna look into, how we're gonna actually complete the access management through this area now, because the gas station and through this area, basically, it's just a wide driveway for both areas. So we're trying to figure out how can we get people to safely walk here, not have to traverse this wide open area again, because we're always thinking about kids. Whenever we design things like this, if there's trail, if it's a sidewalk, some type of crossing, it's not for the adult users. You should know better essentially, but it's your children, right? We don't want to send your 12-year-old kid out there and say, they'll be fine. They're gonna follow the signs and the line striping and they're gonna be okay. Right? Because we can't teach human behavior when we're doing engineering. We hope that people will follow what we set forth with our guidance. So here, this is why we're trying to do a little bit of access management so that folks have a designated space, a safe space that they can be on and walk. And I don't have to worry about cars and conflict points because they don't know what that is, right? So we gotta have to try to help them out where we can. So I know some of these areas that we'll talk a little bit about potentially a little more afterwards, but that's kind of where the thought process came from and where we're going with it. So this is a match line right here. which lines up with our last piece, that's gonna head to Pearl Street and John Street. And it's kind of the same idea, the sidewalk on the north and southern side are gonna come all the way to the intersection. On the northern side, tie into the existing crosswalk, that's gonna go to the CVS. The southern side, we're gonna wrap around to Pearl Street, and we're gonna talk about this in a couple slides here. It's gonna lock into where Chips Pub and Clinton Sports is, so that you can get all the way downtown, because you have a whole sidewalk network that brings you basically here, actually. Trying to think, there's a couple catch basins that we're replacing. This is the low point of the road. There is potential flooding that's occurring here that we're gonna be talking about in a few minutes. So we're looking into what we could possibly do to mitigate the flooding that's occurring there. And we've already kind of dove into what's happening. We have some solutions, and we have to kind of bring it up and talk about it with you folks as well. There will be some relocations of potential fencing, I think, through here, just so that we can get our sidewalk. I forgot to put the property owners here right in the corner. And then there's some trees that we're gonna be protecting throughout the corridor as well, because we're trying to save trees where we can. So there's some call outs here, you can see them on the plans. We actually call out, say, protect the tree. Don't cut it down, we don't need to, kind of help the aesthetic of the corridor. I think, I don't think there's anything else I've missed. I think that's new.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a lot of information, I know. Yeah, there.
Now we can talk about the traffic signals, I guess. So right now out there, everything is ADA compliant and TCD compliant. The signal has just been rebuilt years ago. So what we're actually doing is we're enhancing, I'd like to say. We're making sure that all the pedestrians are able to cross the street safely by adding additional crosswalks and the buttons to make the signal change so they get a safe crossing. All the buttons are gonna be what they call accessible pedestrian buttons. They're the ones that when you hit them, they go beep bop. That's what I like to say all the time. And the countdown signals are out there, we're just adding more of them. One thing that we are doing is there's a new initiative at DOT, it's called the Complete Streets Initiative. Now with the Complete Streets Initiative, there's all sorts of new technologies that the state's trying to implement to make pedestrians and bicyclists safer out on the road. And one of those is blank out signs are called. So when the pedestrian hits the button, the sign will come on for conflicting vehicles that are trying to make the right-hand turn. And so that tells the driver that they have to yield to pedestrians that are actually coming out to the street that are trying to cross. So that's one thing that we are trying to see if the department would like to do out there. Yeah. Go on to it, and we'll look at where all the buttons are. So this is a new crossing right here along North High Street. There's gonna be a button on this side and one on the pole over here. This is an existing crossing across Route 1 right now. Now, with all the changes to the pedestrian or for the signal equipment, there are no changes to the lane configurations or anything like that. Capacity wise, it's gonna work just as well as it is right now. Two more additional crossings are the garden centers on this side, and then crossing the street to, is that the gas station on this side, I believe? And then the buttons, I believe, are here and here. There's also, I think we're moving the buttons here on this ramp as well. Of course, there'll be buttons on this crossing as well. So basically, what we're just trying to do is make sure that there's directional crossings so that the pedestrians have an easier time crossing the street and that they're spending less time on the street as well. I'll hand it back over to Ken to talk about the extra work here.
So as Mike alluded to, whenever we put crossings in, we try to make it as short as possible, because the shorter it is, ideally, the less time it takes you to cross, the more safe it is. So where we can, when we're doing these types of projects, we try to put the crossings, even though a crossing like this, you say to yourself, well, I'm just gonna cross in this path here. I'm not actually gonna wrap myself around and cross. The idea behind it is that this is a shorter distance than out here. And when you have a signal involved, we have to take that into account. If you add another 20 feet, you have to add another couple seconds. And then you don't think about that all the time until you're the guy that's sitting in there in your car going, what is taking forever, right? So you get a little anxious for it. So that's kind of the purpose of it. And again, for this particular crossing, we've highlighted in red, this is an area where in the initial scope, we didn't actually have a crossing. We had the project ending here we have stations on the alignment, which just says 4. The stations just give us a reference point for the project. So instead of saying, oh, by the Exxon station, maybe 50 feet down, you kind of understand it, but if I said at station 13 plus 10, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the initial project scope was to end the project kind of right where I'm showing here at the end of the station 1355. But then we all kind of collectively said, you know, it would make a lot of sense to wrap this sidewalk around Pearl and then make a connection to get you over to the rest of the Main Street corridor. So that's something that we would need some additional survey for so that we can make this actually happen, design it appropriately to the guidance that Mike was talking about before. The ramps would have to get designed as well, and then just coordinate with the town and then any utilities that we're gonna be doing. So we'll be coordinating with utilities and I'll talk about that for a portion of the project. So that's something that is gonna potentially occur so that we can make that final connection. And then the second piece I alluded to before was the ponding that was occurring on Route 1. So right here at this horizontal curve, there's a low point, 2 catch basins. And it was brought to our attention that even in just, I would say, not significant rainstorms, it starts flooding. So we were like, okay, we can look into that. So it was outside of the scope for us to do so. So that means that we'd have to draft up an agreement that says that we can do the design for it, that we'd have to work through with the town and the state in order to procure that work. And these are kind of the steps that we've outlined in order to make that happen. So we just wanted to kind of show everybody what would have to occur. This area in blue is kind of the area that we would have to survey, get our surveyors out there, get all the information for the elevations, so vertical and horizontally. That way we can start investigating where that pipe is actually coming out, which is somewhere down, this is again, north is up, so down here at Stevens Road. So it's important we understand what the outlet is, because then we want to understand is we have all this water in here. Why isn't it coming into these pipes and outletting? What's holding it back? Why is it staying in the roadway? So that's kind of the hydraulic analysis that we'll have to perform. So there's just some programs that we have and some information we would gather. We kind of put that all into the program, and then we would use that so that we can come up with some different approaches, different solutions. If the pipe sizes are too small, if we need more catch basins, more catchment area, as we would call it, or if there's just not large enough pipes in the entire system now, or if there's some blockages along the way, we'll do our due diligence to figure out exactly what the right approach would be. Also keeping in mind if it's a cost-effective solution or not. So this is something that potentially will occur as in part of the project as well. And then there's always permitting anytime we touch water, especially being a shoreline community, there's always permitting involved, so we'll have to work with appropriate personnel like the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be, not touching anything more, and we're trying to keep the impacts as small as we can. So that's kind of where they come into play, and potentially some others as well. So just like I said before, as a part of any project, there's always some constraints and impacts with the existing utilities. In this case, it's overhead utilities. You have overhead wires. So as this utility pole shows, you're gonna have all your telecom, you're gonna have electrical, et cetera, up in the air. And unfortunately, there's 3 poles here that we've identified in this table that will have to be moved in order to make the new sidewalk be able to be constructed. Now, that isn't to say that we can't construct the sidewalks with the poles in their existing condition. We can. Ideally, we move them because it doesn't look like a finished product if you have a pole in the sidewalk. That's what we're trying to avoid. That can happen. The guidance says it can as long as we have the appropriate passable width, but it's not going to look right. It's going to look like we didn't do our due diligence or have our proper communication. So we're going to try to work with utility companies to make sure that we can move them. You might say, well, why don't they just move them? Sometimes if you look at some of these poles, there's a lot happening on them. Become very costly, very expensive. So you have to kind of do a cost benefit to see if that makes sense. Some of these poles, and I kid you not, cost up to $100,000, $50,000 to move. That's a big number, especially when your project is say $1 million. You know, that's a tenth of your project. It may not make a lot of sense to do that when it's not even that much to construct the project. So those are things that we consider when we're doing this. So that's why we will have a utility meeting. We'll have all the folks that come out. We'll figure out who actually owns the pole, because believe it or not, the pole custodian, even though it says SNET on it, Eversource might own it. They might have sold to Frontier, or whoever charter, somebody else might own. So it's always important for us to figure all that out. So there will hopefully be some utility relocations. That's the next phase of the project once we get through this portion of the meeting, solicit all the feedback from you folks. And then I do want to point out that even though there will be some utility work, that the businesses and residents along the corridor won't be affected as far as their points of egress. from their homes or their businesses. None of them should affect any of that. And I just, oh, sorry, no, you're good. Good, yes. It's a lot easier for people to see this visually, so we have the 3 areas circled of the poles that would be moved. There's a particular pole, I'm sure if you come through this area right now, just to the west of the liquor store, it's actually already in the sidewalk. The sidewalk ends right at the pole. So that's the pole that we're trying to actually move so that we can get a new sidewalk to lock into it horizontally appropriately. And then there's a location just across from Grove Street, on the north side of Grove Street as well. We're trying to move that pole completely out of the sidewalk. There's a little bit of it in the sidewalk right now. We want to move it out. And then there's one more location. We go to the next slide. Right where the double catch basins are, where I was talking about with the hydraulic issue in our enclosed system. So those are the 3 areas of the poles, and if you walk out there now, you probably could figure out exactly which ones they are. The previous schedules show exactly what the pole number is. Every pole has a number on it, so we can identify what they are. And the next slide. You don't have to listen to me much longer, I promise. We're almost there. So more constraints and opportunities, we have to talk about rights of way impacts. So this is our schedule of property impacts. So when we have these, we have to identify where we are potentially impacting residents, private property. So outside of that state right of way, we want to know what are we doing and how much area are we affecting? What's that land look like? So this is that schedule. In this particular case, it's going to be a lot of easements and rights. So there's a difference. So a right is like a right to grade or slope or shape the land, right to install a fence, things like that. So we actually put a remark here of exactly what we're trying to accomplish with each. So we put the property owners and what we're going to be doing or how we're going to be impacting the property. And that's where Kathleen's going to come in to kind of talk about what that process looks like through the state of Connecticut, which we're going to get into what the funding looks like. So that those conversations can occur. And I know some of you have already had some conversations potentially with the town, so that we can try to work through some of these impacts through the design. So with that.
So again, my name is Kathleen Erickson. I'm a project coordinator with the DOT's Division of Rights of Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring property rights that are needed for transportation projects all throughout the state. So I'll just be giving you a brief overview of what the acquisition process looks like. Before I get further into that, though, I do want to mention that the property impacts for this project are still being finalized, so they could change as the design is progressing. Also, any property rights that are required are done so in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, sections 13A-73 and 13A-98E, as well as the Uniform Act. So the right-of-way acquisition process begins once the project reaches a development milestone and all of the property impacts have been determined. At that point, each affected property owner will receive from our office a formal letter of intent to acquire, as well as a property map depicting the exact property rights to be acquired. You can see on the screen, here's a sample of what the property maps look like. Next, our office will determine the fair market value of those property rights, which will be used to create an offer of just compensation. Property owner will receive the offer in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with them to discuss the project, their specific property impacts, and the offer itself. The property owner will be given a reasonable amount of time to consider the state's offer and to enter into negotiations. And then once an agreement has been reached, the department will prepare all necessary documents in order to record the deed and the property map on the town land records. Now, if an agreement cannot be reached in order to maintain the project schedule, the department may acquire necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. If that were to happen, the state would file a notice of condemnation with the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The property owner then have 6 months to file an appeal if they felt the state's offer was inadequate. Now, whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money that was deposited in the court is available to be drawn by the owner at any time. It is important to note too that we'll only be acquiring the property rights that are absolutely necessary for the project. But if there are any questions regarding the right-of-way acquisition process, I'm happy to answer them after the conclusion of tonight's presentation. But for now, I'll turn it back over to Ken to continue.
And just one thing on the property, the acquisition piece for where it may be necessary. The town council has deferred that conversation to the state, so that's something that individual staff members won't be able to have conversations about those negotiations. That'll all defer to the state, so just be prepared for that part of it as well.
All right, so last on the constraints and opportunities piece of this project is the environmental and historical impacts. That is part of any project we always look at, and with the help of the state, I point at Mark here. We start with project needs determination form, and because it's engineering, we have to give everything in acronyms. We call it PNDF. This makes it sound a lot smarter, I suppose. So we do an environmental screening. We look at anything that's going to have, if there's dirty dirt, potentially floodplain issues, if there's gonna be what we call natural diversity database, which is where we look at any endangered species that might be in the area, or even vegetation, but we try to accommodate for everything, one way, shape, or form. So starting at the top, there is a potential floodplain or wetland impact based on the outlet work that we may design for that flood issue on Route 1. So if that becomes part of the project, there, you're getting close to the ocean, there's ultimately gonna be some floodplain impacts, and that will have to be looked at a little bit closer, which I said we have to work with Army Corps on, potentially deep, to see exactly what we need to do. And because there's a potential presence of the northern long-eared bat, there'll be some mitigation factors that will have to accommodate for them as part of our design as well. There's time of year restrictions because of that, like when the contractor can clear or cut down trees if it's part of the project, which I don't believe we have any of that here anyways. But that's what would occur here. One thing I do want to point out is that the project is not likely to encounter any regulated hazardous materials on the project. Basically meaning we're constructing sidewalk. Sidewalk has, it's relatively shallow. So we're gonna basically be going about 14 inches down. So something like that. So because it's so shallow, we're not going down several feet or anything like that. We're not gonna be impacting or coming up with any potential dirty dirt. A lot of the sidewalks are already built, so we're gonna be replacing a lot of it in kind. So that footprint has already been basically used for that exact purpose. And lastly, section 106, which is a reference to the state historic preservation office, is that there's no adverse effects in the corridor. So basically we reach out to what we call SHPO, yet again, another acronym, the State Historic Preservation Office, and say, is there any historic artifacts that you're aware of, any buildings that we should be aware of, anything that we can't touch, some historic bridges, buildings, etc. They said, no, you guys should be okay with your project limits that you've provided. So we're already doing a lot of the due diligence here. There's some still more due diligence to go, but we'll be turning over all those stones as we get through the project. Go to the next slide. We'll get to the end here. So we kind of just want to talk about financials and schedule. So the project right now, we're looking to complete in the winter of 26, and I don't mean January of 26 that's coming up. I mean more like November of 26 in a year and a month from now. So about another year for us to get the design completed. Where we are right now, the point at the back of the room, those plans are about 30% completed. We will have a 60% submission, 90, and then 100. So we have 3 more submissions to go before we get to the final product, which will be again roughly about October, November of next year. Then if that we hold our schedule with this, then we're going to be looking for the start of construction in spring of 27. So it's about a year and a half out before you'll see some contractors out there, shovels in the ground work occurring. The project is estimated about $1.5 million right now. That may go up or down as we get a little bit more detailed in the design. That also may go up if the extra work that we talked about with the flooding and the addition of the sidewalks adds to the project, that value will go up as well. And that's kind of a screenshot that we hold here. That's kind of how we come up with what is how we come up with the costs. We actually go through a unit cost breakdown. So we highlight all the possible items in the project. We assign quantity and a potential cost so that we have an idea of how much money we need to actually procure such a project. Last piece I want to talk about is where the money came from. This is actually, in my opinion, it's a pretty good deal. So it's through the Transportation's Alternative Program. This program takes a lot of different types of projects, a lot of multimodal projects, and gives money to the town so that they can have a way and a vehicle to actually procure these projects, get those shovels in the ground. So it's 80% funded by the federal government, and then the 20% gets picked up by the town. So if you have $100,000, you're paying 20 and you're getting 80. And in my book, that's pretty good. I wish my parents would do something like that for me. I digress. So with that, we just go to the thank you for listening. And we're going to take some questions. And if you go to the one more slide, I just want to put up, as Abby already alluded to, just some of her information. I will point out that if you have any comments beyond this meeting, if you can email Abby, call her, Abby, by September 30th. That way we can keep our schedule of our project and we can move into the next phase of design. Doesn't mean that, you can't obviously call the town at us another point, but that's when we're really gonna start, putting the rubber to the road, October 1, and move into the next phase of the project. So with that, enough of me talking, and I wanna see if anybody has any questions. Not all at once, though.
If
Yes,
nobody else has questions.
yes.
I'm on the town council, so I am anticipating getting these questions. The concrete wall you talked about, that's going to replace the wooden retaining wall. Someone will say that we are a quaint shoreline town and the wooden aesthetic is what I really appreciate about downtown, is the concrete wall going to look as nice as the wooden wall that's currently there.
Yeah, so are you asking if I think it's gonna look as nice?
I'm asking what it's going to look like. Is it just going to be a concrete slab in the ground, or is there going to be some design aesthetic?
So there won't be really any design aesthetic because it's gonna be about yay tall, about here. So it's gonna look like exactly like a concrete curb. It's gonna be 6 inches wide, 18 inches tall. So if you look at a concrete curb, I don't know if you have concrete in town, Tyler, I don't think so.
We have some,
It'd have to
the
find-
biggest reason replacing this with concrete, though, is the reason we're replacing it is because the wood's rotting.
Get it?
So
Yeah,
that's,
no,
so that's,
I just know the
so
question.
yeah, it's a very, the minimal.
Just to chime in, I don't think you'd have even enough room to put like a form line or anything like that
No.
on that side of a size of a wall anyways, to try to improve the aesthetics. That's the other issue.
So a form line would be some kind of, it would give it the facade of looking like a brick or a stone. If you've gone down like Q Bridge in New Haven, all their abutments look really fancy, like it's stone, but it's not. That's what you just kind of look at.
But no changes to the current width of the road as it exists now?
No.
Fantastic. If you're gonna spend all that money to move the poles, why don't you just bury the power lines?
Oh, that's way more expensive.
I know, I wanted to hear that, dude.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm happy to go on the record for that.
Thank
We
you.
did we had another project and I can't recall what the value was, but it was something like $1,000 a linear foot, something like that. It's very expensive. Yeah.
And has there been any consideration to the traffic downtown and the lights that are going in there?
Go ahead.
That's beyond the scope of this project. I will tell you that this signal that's probably 1,000-1,500 feet up the road will really have no impact on anything that's closer to where CVS is and all that. It's not gonna have, the queues are gonna be, I guess, accommodated at this point. They're not really gonna change that dramatically. Everything, like I was saying before, phasing wise, the way the signal operates now, there's really gonna be no impact to vehicles out there. We're changing the pedestrian, phasing and within DOT guidance that they find to be safer. So, and in those changes, it actually doesn't really improve capacity, but it just accommodates it. I'll say that. It's basically status quo out there. So there really won't be any impacts by any of our work on
So I'll just say too that, we go back to the purpose and need of the project, and the purpose and need is to put these sidewalks, through the corridor. The purpose is not to go through the signals and optimize them, it's kind of what.
So, believe me, I'd love to. I see how they operate down here. I've
I hear it a lot.
yeah, I've been involved, I was involved with the factory's master plan like 6 years ago. We were looking at that signal and yeah, it's during the summer, I could see it being. So,
Last one, the crosswalk at Chips, the one that like is set back a little bit.
Yeah.
I heard you say about like the shortest point from A to B, and that's why it's set back a little bit. Visually, if you are driving east on Route 1, will you be able to see that crosswalk before someone just is barreling 40 miles an hour and swings to the right and hits somebody in the crosswalk?
Yeah, so right now there's a home that just got removed, I believe. It's
There's a sign up.
The White House, it's gonna eventually go, so that restricts some sight lines, there's an existing tree there if I recall. So a lot of our designs, right now, hopefully, that sounds like an enforcement question to me. Like, why is somebody barreling through at 40 miles an hour and taking the turn? So that I would direct you to your, law enforcement. So I can't particularly answer that. But I understand what you're saying is you would wanna bring it a little bit closer. The idea here too is that we can make a connection, heading further south, so there's Stevens, and then we have, like, continue south on Pearl to connect going down, like, say, the Town Beach area. So that's kind of where that's coming from. If we, it's. Second. It might be hard to see, but because of the geometry of the road as well, if we were to pull this out, there's really no good port on the eastern side to have a directional handicap ramp, sidewalk ramp. In other words, we also have to consider not folks just in wheelchairs, but folks that are blind. So you'll see what we call the technical warning strips on all of our sidewalk ramps. That was little bubbles on the top there. So those generally point you in the direction of where you're crossing. So if you notice a lot of our ramps, they're directing you to the crossing. They're not directing you into the middle of the road. That's something we're trying to get away from the best that we can. So if we were to put this ramp over here, someone would just follow it very perpendicular where they're going and put them in the road. So ideally, we're not gonna do that. This is just a representation of what would be. This is not the final design because it wasn't part of the work. We're just trying to show something of what it would be. So to your answer, that's potentially why I wouldn't put it there. I would want to work this geometry to make it a tighter radii so that I have more room, but that's not really the purpose of what the project was.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Individual properties or any of that kind of stuff too? Is there anybody who is?
Your hand up.
I was going to ask whether the letters had been sent to,
Yes, two rounds of letters were sent, so folks should have received a certified return receipt with a signature, and then another letter after that, in addition to the legal notices, just to make sure, so a regular letter and a certified return receipt letter, plus the legal notices, and then some advertisements on the town website, Facebook, so we've been trying to get the word out to folks as best we can.
has there been any response?
I've had a couple of folks call in. There's 3 properties that I've been in conversation with. The vast majority of folks have not reached out yet, but that doesn't mean they won't after this presentation, so.
Do we need to talk about the Exxon and Mobil, where you're gonna cut off on their driveway?
Okay. Sure. Yeah, okay. Do you have any questions that you want to ask right now?
Yeah, I mean, you bring it in, you're gonna interrupt business. That's the way.
So the gas station has 2 entrances on. Main Street, West Main Street. That's where the gas is.
So right here on Grove,
Yeah,
in West Main. So you have your 3 entrances, yep.
which is, I have 2 on Main Street. This is Grove Street with separate entrance. I'm talking about Main Street. That's where my customers come from.
Right.
mainly. So customers from the north side, they just come and get their gas from the left side of the car.
Yep.
And the customers who comes from the south side, they will get the gas from the right, the car side.
Mhm.
Plus I have the customer for the delis, the parking lots. And the gas load, they get the gas load every other day.
Mhm.
So I have a huge truck comes to the station, they have to come from this side and exit from the other side.
So from the gas station, they enter, you're saying they come from the east and go west, or they come from west?
You talking about the customers or the?
Well, the customers come from everywhere.
From everywhere, yes.
Right.
So are you going to close one of the entrance of the gas station or?
Right now, that's what we're showing here, because you have your Grove Street entrance, so that could help with the flow of traffic, and then you still have one here.
We hardly have any traffic coming in from Grove Street.
Yeah.
Usually the light is on and there's cars there.
And that-
Get in.
That would make sense because you have your alternate, you have 3 entrances, so I would imagine that you're gonna use 2.
Two
right.
from the main street.
So if you close one, then it's gonna have people come to Grove.
But 90% of my customers come from Main Street, not from Grove Street.
I
So
understand
when they
that.
come from 95, from the north side, the customers, they just come from this side. Even my tanks, we're gonna close the parking lot, the entrance, my gas tank over there. Where are you gonna close it? Yes,
Your gas tank is right,
yes,
Here.
in this area. And there's a-
right in front of the entrance of
And I
Grove.
have, yes, and I have a parking lot too, have a big parking lot there too.
Right, and some of the parking is on state right of way right now.
Yes, there's huge.
Right,
Three
so
parking.
you got, your business uses state right of way for your business.
Yes,
Yeah, so that does an issue. Right, and that's why the state has this project, that's an encroachment issue that they're gonna have to talk to you about. Cause you can't use the state's property for your business. See
But
what I'm saying?
it's an interest, we haven't done this for
Understand.
almost 25 years now. And you're gonna cost me, I'm gonna lose customers, and it's gonna cause traffic too. If every one of my customers is gonna come from only the entrance, it's gonna be hard for them to get in and out.
One of the points that you raised, when we were just speaking, one of the points that you raised to me was that you had concerns that as folks try to use the Grove Street entrance, that because traffic is backed up at that light, you were concerned about folks getting in and out of the site quickly or as quickly as they are today. So I mean, is that a fair?
You know, they do.
Yeah, because when I go there from Killingworth, I take the other road here by the back shore. And I don't go down Grove Street because you can't get in there.
Right, so in other words, if we were to close this entrance, you could still use the entrance that's 50 feet up.
Yes, but there's a traffic light, so if there's 3 cars parking and that street, it's gonna block the Grove Street, the entrance. That's the issue.
Here,
Yes, if only 2 or
no, but I'm
3
saying
cars
if
park.
I'm traveling eastbound and I wanna pull in the entrance here, you're saying this is the heavily used entrance that
Yes.
we're proposing.
Yeah.
I'm saying, what if they just go 50 more feet and go to the next one that remains open, that's a no,
Why
that's a
don't
no
you turn
go.
around in there?
Why they-
Was that,
It's not enough room for a tractor trailer to go in there and turn around.
okay,
So
so,
huge trucks, they come, because it's not a normal truck.
Yes.
It's a-
Mark,
How do the tractor trailers operate today?
They come from the entrance, they
Yeah.
get closed.
they go from here,
Yeah.
Yes.
they go here and they come
Exactly,
down,
They park there, that's it.
and then how do they leave? Do they come out Grove or they go,
They go that
I
way.
believe they go that way.
they go over here?
Yes.
So they come in here and they must have to. How does
They
that
pull
work?
in, they pull in facing parallel with Route 1.
Yes.
Yeah, from that entrance though, they can't.
Can I come in? Can I come in?
Yeah, no, that's what we're trying to figure out,
Okay.
so that we understand what's going on here.
So the trucks come from 95
Mhm.
of the street and they just go, they wait here at the traffic light and they go in. And they put the fuel for you,
Yep,
right? So here's a gas station.
yep,
There's 4 gas pumps.
yeah,
I mean, if he goes in here, he cannot get out to the parking lot until those customers, they get their gas.
so he
filled.
pulls in here and
And
then
then
he
he
backs up.
Yes, he'll have to wait for the traffic to, because I have like there's I have 4 gas pumps. So there's no way for them, even the customers, they cannot get their gas and, from this side.
Okay.
You know, from both sides.
Yeah,
I mean, 80 or 90% of my customers, they come from Main Street. not from both.
correct,
And, what else was it? Okay, so now you talk about if the trucks come here, you're talking about there's 2 or 3 cars there at the traffic light.
Mhm.
He's gonna cause traffic here, yeah, because you have to wait for the traffic light to turn green and then go left and go.
For anybody that
Yeah,
wants to go on the
anybody,
Grove.
exactly.
right, but you already established that Grove Street doesn't get used a lot,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't have to worry about that. So it's really this one that you're concerned about.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if, I know you're gonna have the sidewalk here,
Mhm.
but if you leave part of it open, it'll solve the whole problem.
So some of it can remain open. Now, would there be any this one you always want to be open?
Yes.
I mean, you want as much, you're a gas station in the
Gas
corner.
station, coffee.
You don't want any, you want open. That's.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a huge open right now, it is big,
Yeah.
interest, I understand that.
Right,
But, it's not a gas station, it's a grocery store, deli,
right,
coffee shop.
Okay.
So it will be easier for my customers to get in and out of the trucks.
Okay.
Thank you.
sure. Mark, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think, being a state road, DOT is very, very concerned about the safety of having a curb cut in the middle of an intersection. And I don't see that being permitted. I thought just,
Yeah, but the business has been there for 25 years. And most of my customers come from this entrance. And if it's gonna affect both sides, my customers and the state too. Because it's gonna cause traffic, like I say, the customers gotta come from Grove Street, they have to wait for the lights to turn on, to turn green, to get into my parking lot. So imagine all those huge trucks and. Get in.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Your safety, couldn't you just take?
I mean, we
part
could
of
go
it?
meet there if you like, and I could even show it to you over there, on the product.
Can I ask how many, delivery trucks you get? Per,
I
let's
get
say,
grocery delivery, I have almost every other day, I have a gas delivery.
okay,
I have milk order, the coffee trucks.
Right.
It's a busy
Paulo.
location, J Paulo.
Waste oil.
Every day there's a truck, with two trucks, every day. We're talking about Pepsi, Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
all those trucks are big.
Right.
What's the size of the waste oil truck? Cause I know that one is on the other side by the pylon side.
Size of a garbage, truck.
And you're
They
talking about,
pump and they pump out.
and also I have the two, here for the trash, the big trash, Coca-Cola, Pepsi trucks, they're not small.
So for the circulation, you don't use Grove Street at all? It's, he comes in and he goes out. So when. I'm just trying to, cause I wanna make sure I get this, so your delivery truck comes to North High Street for gas, cause that's your largest vehicle, I would imagine. J Powell's probably a little smaller, comes in here. But if he's pulling in forward, does he have just long hoses basically to connect in?
Yeah, but he pulls in and it turns into the, where the pumps are.
Here,
Yes,
and then he backs up,
exactly.
and then does he exit back the way he
No, he goes back out the other way.
goes this way?
Yes.
Okay, now I get it, alright.
I mean, it doesn't have to be that big. You could make it shorter and have safety for the pedestrians.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot happening there, fortunately.
The only customers we get from Grove Street is from Grove Street entrance.
No, I get that.
They would sound there.
Right, yeah. Or the impatient person that doesn't wanna wait for the red, takes a right, takes a
Well,
left.
there's
Right,
cars there,
right,
you know.
yeah. Understood. Right. Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, there's gonna come issues where we have these conflicts and we're not gonna solve them tonight, but the pretty important part of this phase of the project is getting all of that out on the table. And so we can start to talk through, are there alternative solutions? What would work with DOT, because ultimately they are going to make a call on what's permissible in the state right of way, and so that's part of this. And kind of how we handle those safety conflicts, so we'll have to think about where that next level of communication comes from, but thank you, because hearing your operations helps us
Yeah.
understand. I don't wanna give promises or false hope or anything else, but I wanna make sure you're heard. And that at least we can kind of take this issue back and see if there's another alternative or not.
Yeah, it's not about only my business and my customer, it's gonna affect traffic, it's gonna be a big traffic there, it's like an issue. Trust me, if you go there and see the place, especially in the morning, in the afternoon, if you close this parking lot, it's just gonna be. Big issue there.
I mean, there's a lot of traffic that comes off the highway and, goes down by the package store road, whatever that is, on the railroad, they're fast.
Yep.
You know, two or three cars can get by, that's it. The light changes.
Yeah. Yep. Quick. No, it's good to understand the circulation that you have in your parking lot too, we want to be cognizant of that, so that's good, that's good information. Is there anything else? Cause that's probably, like I said, your biggest vehicle? Do you say, the biggest vehicle that comes in?
This
Gas truck,
Yeah, sure, yeah,
yes, that's true, yeah.
and then the Coca-Cola and
Oh,
all
the
together.
Pepsi,
Yeah.
they're all always through, they come and pick up the trash.
Right.
Talking about the milk, the coffee, grocery, J Paul, big grocery company.
Yep, yes. Paint letters,
Yes.
yeah,
I have also Boar's Head, and there's a lot of big trucks that have
right,
a deli there too.
Sure.
Yes.
right. Yeah, we'll look into that and we'll talk with the state, we'll work with the town. There'll probably be more conversations to be had about that, but I appreciate the feedback. It's being good. Anyone else? That nods no. No. Hearing none?
Yeah, I think just a couple of, just sort of pieces, feel free with your neighbors, with folks who are, if anybody is watching this from home, once we post this on our website tomorrow, and we'll send folks emails and stuff to get the word out. Please spread the word and have folks either watch this presentation, give me a call, email. We want to make sure we get everyone's comments in at this juncture. The reason for that is that we have this period now at 30% design where the town council is going to be asked to make a decision. And that decision is, where does the project go forward? And right now, the anticipation is that vote will be asked of the town council at one of their October meetings. And so we want to make sure that going into that, any information or any concerns are all out on the table, so that as folks are thinking about what that final design looks like and what might need to be resolved, it's on the table. We don't want surprises later on. So please, spread the word and make sure folks help us make sure folks know.
Abby, has everybody along this path been told, businesses and residential landlords?
Every single property owner has been notified by 2 points of mail.
Great.
Okay.
We only received one letter.
You should have received a certified return receipt, which it will go to the owner of record. And so it may be that one went to, the main address for the business ownership versus the site address. So that could have been a thing. Which is why we wanted to make sure we sent it twice, because we know that sometimes the folks at the property don't always get the letter, so.
Thank you. All right.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. We appreciate you being here. And like I said, continue to share your thoughts, spread the word, and I will be here to help make sure that the word gets shared with our team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.